I'll give you exactly 5 seconds to open this damn door before I have you arrested for trespassing on your own property." That was the sound that yanked me out of a quiet Sunday morning coffee still in hand laptop open on my porch. Through the window, I saw her. Diane Westbrook, the Pine Lake HOA president, red-faced, pounding on my cabin door hard enough to rattle the hinges. Behind her stood at least 15 strangers in swimwear hauling coolers and folding chairs already setting up like my private lakefront was some public park. That moment was the start of a 3-month war that ended with Diane losing everything: her position, her reputation, and her mind. I'd spent 10 years saving every spare dollar to buy that cabin. As a remote IT guy, I'd wanted a peaceful place to work and breathe. My little piece of heaven sat on a small peninsula 200 feet of private shoreline that wrapped around in a crescent of calm water sheltered from the main lake traffic. I'd even restored the native grasses along the shore myself, watching butterflies and songbirds return each summer. That place wasn't just property, it was peace. Until Diane decided it was hers. When I walked down to confront her, she turned that fake realtor smile on me. "Ethan, perfect timing. We're showing potential buyers around. The lakefront is our community's biggest asset and your shoreline has the best view." She said it like she was giving me a compliment as one of her guests moved my handmade chair to make room for their cooler. I clenched my fists. This isn't community land, it's private property. I own it, and I have the deed to prove it. Her smile tightened. Actually, the HOA bylaws clearly state that all lakefront areas are community recreational zones. That was a lie, and she knew it. But to her audience, it sounded official. I started recording with my phone, calmly asking them all to leave. Diane's tone dropped into a low, venomous whisper. "Don't make a scene, Ethan. These people are investors. You don't want to be known as difficult." When I didn't back down, she changed her tactic. "Fine, I'll call the police." And she did right there in front of everyone. 45 minutes later, when the officer arrived, my shoreline looked like a disaster zone, trampled plants, beer cans, and the water-muddy footprints all over my deck. The officer reviewed my deed and turned to Diane. "Ma'am, this property, including the shoreline, is privately owned. HOA jurisdiction doesn't extend here." The look she gave me could have peeled paint. She leaned close as her guests packed up. "You have no idea who you're messing with," she hissed. "The HOA has ways of dealing with residents like you." That night, my neighbor Frank, retired cop, good man, helped me clean the mess. "You just made the worst enemy at Pine Lake," he said. "She's driven out 3 homeowners before you." I laughed it off then, but the next morning a thick envelope appeared in my mailbox. 7 violations. Things like window trim exceeding 3% gloss and grille causing aesthetic air quality concerns. Total fine to $500. Signed, of course, by Diane herself. Over the next few days, more envelopes arrived. Hose improperly stored. Porch light exceeds lumens. Bird feeder encouraging non-native wildlife. Each one more absurd than the last. Frank called it death by 1,000 paper cuts. I called it what it was: harassment. At first, I tried to reason with her. Then, I tried to ignore her. But every new notice chipped away at my peace. There were nights I just sat on the deck staring at the lake wondering if it was worth it. Maybe I should sell. Maybe she was right that I didn't belong here. But then I thought of my father, a law professor who'd spent years teaching me to stand my ground. "Always know your rights," he used to say, and never let a bully rewrite them. So I started digging. I spent 2 full days combing through every HOA bylaw, every amendment. And guess what? Half the violations she cited didn't even exist. The rest were twisted beyond recognition. I drafted a formal, detailed response, sent copies to every board member, and requested proof of each supposed infraction. The next day, more violations showed up in my mailbox. That's when I realized she wasn't reacting. She was panicking. A week later, I got a late-night call from Olivia Bennett, a younger board member. Her voice shook as she whispered Diane's planning to change the bylaws tomorrow. She's pushing an amendment to claim certain private shorelines as community view corridors. Yours is first on the list. The next evening, I showed up at the community center in my best suit. Diane's face twisted when she saw me. "You can't be here," she snapped. "Homeowners under citation aren't allowed." I smiled. Section 4.3 of the charter says otherwise. The room went dead silent. When she tried to rush a vote through, I stood and laid out county property maps, shoreline ordinances, and surveys showing my property's legal boundaries. "What you're proposing violates riparian rights under county law," I said, my voice steady. "And it opens the HOA up to lawsuits for selective enforcement." Murmurs spread across the room. Diane's hands shook. Her mask slipped for the first time. "You'll regret this," she hissed as I left. "I always win." 2 days later, I got the call from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Morgan." "My name is Megan. Megan Westbrook, Diane's daughter." Her voice trembled. "I think you need to know what my mother's doing." We met at a coffee shop 30 minutes away. Megan looked nothing like her mother, soft-spoken, nervous, genuine. She told me everything. Diane had partnered with the developer Horizon Realty to build a luxury resort. My cabin sat right in the middle of their proposed site. "She's been targeting homeowners one by one," Megan said, "forcing them out with fake violations so Horizon can buy their land cheap." She even showed me photos of emails between Diane and Horizon executives. The Morgan cabin is the cornerstone lot. Westbrook assures us it'll be vacant by Q3. I felt my blood run cold. This wasn't HOA harassment, it was a land grab. I took the evidence to Olivia, who started digging through HOA financial records. 2 days later, she called back in a whisper. "Funds are missing. Projects that were never built, payments with no invoices." "Ethan, she's laundering money through fake consulting firms." Before Olivia could say more, she went quiet. "I have to go. Diane just walked in." The next morning, Olivia was removed from the board for conflicts of interest. That same day, I got a notice from my bank the HOA had initiated lien proceedings against my property. That's when panic truly set in. I called Frank and he came over within minutes. "She's gone too far," he said. But overreach is how bullies fall. That night, Megan texted emergency moms holding a private reception tomorrow at your lakefront for Horizon execs. They're calling it a preview of the future spa site. Attached was a photo of the printed itinerary with my property listed as the event location. And if that wasn't enough, the county inspector showed up the next morning saying Diane had filed a complaint about my cabin's foundation being unsafe. But as he worked, his conscience cracked. "I can't do this," he admitted quietly. "She threatened my job if I didn't condemn your cabin. But there's nothing wrong with it." He even wrote a signed statement before leaving. Hours later, Diane arrived with her backup inspector, her brother Gregory, a pool contractor pretending to be a structural engineer. Within minutes, he declared the cabin unsafe and posted an evacuation notice on my door. That afternoon, Diane held a press conference in front of my property cameras flashing, pretending to protect the community. But one of my neighbors, Harold, stood up mid-interview. "You're lying through your teeth, Diane. I've got photos from years ago. This cabin's solid." His outburst let me slip in behind the cameras recording her brother planting fake equipment on my land. The video was undeniable. That night, I packed my essentials and stayed at Frank's house for safety. Watching the footage again, I realized something I'd been playing defense too long. It was time to go public. I launched a website, HOA Nightmares, at Pine Lake, posting every document, photo, and clip I had. Within a week, a local investigative blogger published a full exposé. The headline read, "Power, Profit, and Property Rights, the Pine Lake HOA Scandal." It spread like wildfire. Diane tried to strike back with a $2 million defamation lawsuit, but the HOA's own attorney refused to back her warning of criminal exposure. The board panicked. Olivia returned with accounting evidence. Over $57,000 in HOA funds had been funneled into shell companies linked to Diane's family. When the board voted, it was unanimous. Diane was removed as president. She stormed into the meeting screaming, "You can't remove me. I built this place without me. You're nothing." She grabbed a glass of water and flung it across the table, soaking the documents before security escorted her out. It should have ended there, but it didn't. Weeks later, before her court date, she broke into my cabin using a spare key. My security system caught everything her wearing gloves, placing small bags of white powder in drawers, clearly staging a drug scene. Frank and the police arrived in time to catch her still inside, trying to play the victim. When they found another bag of powder in her purse and reviewed my security footage, it was over. Diane was arrested on the spot, charged with breaking and entering, tampering, and attempted framing. I stood outside my cabin as they led her away, lights flashing against the lake. For months, she'd tried to isolate me, intimidate me, destroy me, but in the end, she'd done it to herself. Some battles aren't about property lines, they're about drawing a line inside yourself, deciding you won't be bullied one more inch.